5 p.m., the chair would entertain a motion for consideration of claims.
I move that we pay the consideration claims in the amount of $170,032.66. Annual checks in the amount of $51,213.54. Payroll liabilities for 2019 in the amount of $434,591.66 for a total of $655,837.86. Boy, I read that wrong.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the claims?
I didn't have any.
I had no questions.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Motion passes. Any other business?
No, Your Honor, I have none.
I have none, Your Honor.
All right, then we are adjourned at 6:46 p.m.
I now call the March 5th, 2019 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 o'clock. Our pledge of allegiance will be given to us by Council Member Borders and invocation by Council Member Bailey.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dearest Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day that we've had today. Thank you for the opportunity that we all have to serve in this wonderful community that we live in. Please bless us in all that we do today as we select a new council member and take care of the business before us. Please bless all of those people that put their lives on the line every day, our military, our police and firemen and EMTs. We ask that your guidance be upon all of us. We ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Carl and Mike. Appreciate it. I'd like to welcome everybody here. We're on number 4. If you're following along with the city clerk, please conduct a roll call, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
here.
Councilman Tim Hancock.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilwoman Rebecca Schatza.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. The chair would entertain a motion. Nope. The chair, I declare a quorum is present. And on 6, the approval of the agenda, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item which is already on the agenda will be given the opportunity to speak later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Seeing none, we'll move on to 8, consent agenda. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda by title only, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, February 19, 2019 regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, March 5, 2019 Finance Committee meeting. Approval of the Finance Committee recommendations for March 5, 2019. An open container permit application submitted by Cheryl Rogers for a family reunion on July 12th and 13th, 2019 at Sunset Park from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on both days. An ordinance number 19-002 on second reading, unlawful use of toxic substances. And I'll read that by title only. Proposed ordinance number 19-002 on second reading, an ordinance amending Title 9, Peace, Morals, and Welfare, to revise Chapter 9.08, Offenses Against Public Peace and Decency, to establish Section 9.08.230 unlawful use of toxic substances penalty and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date. And then ordinance number 19-003 on second reading, fireworks allowed on certain days. And I'll read that by title only. An ordinance amending Title 8, Health and Safety, to revise Chapter 8.04, Explosives and Fireworks, Section 8.04.010, Possession, Use, and Sale Prohibited, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Are there any items requiring further discussion?
Yes, Your Honor. Recommendations from the Finance Committee. Consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $170,032.66. Manual checks in the amount of $51,213.54. Payroll liabilities for February 19th, 2019 in the amount of $434,591.66 for a total of $655,837.86.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We're now at 9, and the memorandum of understanding, the MOU for the dog park, Joy's Park, I believe. So we'll turn the time over to the Public Works Director, please.
Yep, thank you. Before you, Your Honor and Council, is the MOU related to the future construction of a dog park in the limits of the city of Riverton. Really, this is an initiative that was started by the Riverton Rotary Club and several other community stakeholders. Riverton Rotary has been proactive. They've received grants from the state of Wyoming and Rotary International for the construction of this park. Its location will be adjacent to the Riverwalk Trail and close to the current Rotary fire pit that's along the Riverwalk Trail. That land is currently owned by the Depot Foundation, and the Depot Foundation has been in contact with Rotary and these community stakeholders. They are very much in favor of the improvement of the dog park. That land, however, will be transferred to the city of Riverton in the future, and there's an agreement in place that details that transfer to occur at a future date. Therefore, the MOU really sets terms and conditions by which the park will be constructed and maintained into the future. Some important notes to highlight is that the property owner at the time has the responsibility of carrying liability insurance for the park. So when it's Depot Foundation land, it's up to the Depot Foundation to have appropriate coverage to address liabilities of the park. When it's transferred to the city of Riverton, it will be put onto our policies for liability. Riverton Rotary will be responsible for the construction of the park. The city, however, will assist them by donating some wood chips, and Job Corps will assist them for a lot of the construction of the park. After the park is constructed, the city of Riverton will assist with regular maintenance of the dog park. At a minimum, this will include emptying trash receptacles 3 times per month, emptying dog waste stations and replacing bags at a minimum of 3 times per month, turning and refreshing wood chips located in the dog park at a minimum of 2 times a year, and then mitigating weeds that will grow within the dog park at a minimum of 2 times a year, and that can be either through chemical or mechanical or preventative methods. The other thing to note is that after the park is transferred to the city of Riverton, the city exercises the right to, at its sole discretion and without notice, to remove or relocate the dog park if it is necessitated at that time in the future. It also states that the maintenance spelled out in the MOU is subject to availability of funds and staffing within the city of Riverton. There's no immediate budget impact to execute this MOU. However, the city will need to invest personnel and material costs, and they will be minimal at best. And so as far as staff is concerned, we are not worried about the budget impact in the execution of this memorandum of understanding. And this MOU serves to accomplish the goal that the council set to enhance the city's image, and then also to maintain and improve the city's infrastructure and to develop long-term planning mechanisms. With that, I will stand for any questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Appreciate your report. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Riverton, the Depot Foundation, and the Riverton Rotary Club.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Your Honor.
Yes.
Kyle, do we have any idea what it will cost? Why you say minimal? Fencing, chips, by minimal, what, no significant to the budget, but, I mean, how many parks do we have? 12, 13, so.
Your Honor, Councilman, we will not incur any any costs for the construction of the park. That will be covered by the grants procured by Rotary. So the fencing, the dirt work, and any improvements associated with the park's construction will be covered by Rotary. We will donate some wood chips, but we're donating them from the yard waste facility, so it's really just a transfer and not incurring a cost. In the future, the cost that will be required on the city for maintenance will be the cost of the waste bags for dogs. That's only a couple $100 a year. And then any chemical that we would have to purchase to mitigate the weeds, but we already purchased that chemical in bulk. And we're not sure even yet if we can use those chemicals in the dog park. We don't want to put anything that would hinder the animals. So outside of that, there really aren't too many hard costs on the city. We will have to obviously have the personnel cost for any time that's put towards mitigating the weeds, emptying the trash bins, replacing the trash bags. And again, those trash bags is a minimal cost, a few $100s a year. Those personnel costs, we absorb them already. And so it's just how we appropriate the time for those staff members. And we don't expect that it will take a lot of time to maintain the dog park. We already send crews to do maintenance along the Riverwalk Trail, so we're hoping that they can just jump in and maintain that when they are there. We did want to set firm limits. We don't want to be out there every other day. That's why we said 3 times a month. And if we find that that's not sufficient, we can amend the MOU.
Thank you.
We have a motion on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The council authorization we're on item 10 for council authorization for the mayor to sign a quitclaim deed to the R&R Rig Service. City Administrator's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. As our Community Development Director is absent this evening, I'll be providing his report to you. In 2008, the City of Riverton entered into an agreement via memorandum of understanding with 3 entities for the development of what is known as the Vasco Addition. The MOU described improvements which were planned in conjunction with the development of the 20-acre Vasco Addition. It also stipulated conditions to be followed if those improvements did not occur, which they did not. One such stipulation included deeding 0.37 acre parcel to R&R Rig Service as described in the staff report. I will not read the entire legal description. In concurrence with the MOU, a quitclaim deed has been prepared transferring ownership of the 0.37 acre parcel from the City of Riverton to R&R Rig Service. This requires the mayor's signature. As a budget impact, R&R Rig Service will remit $10,000 payment to the City of Riverton for that. This is something that we had been working on for a while, that planning had been working on. And as such, The recommendation is that City Council authorize the mayor to sign the quitclaim deed transferring ownership of the aforementioned property as presented. We would stand for any questions.
The chair would entertain a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the quitclaim deed transferring ownership of .37 acres in accordance with the Vasco Addition MOU.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We're on 11. Acceptance of the revised purchasing policy. The finance director report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Wyoming Statute 15-1-113 addresses contracts for public improvements and requires that municipalities follow specific guidelines in advertising for bids, proposals, or qualifications. The contracts are awarded to the lowest qualified and responsible bidder, and that the governing body accepts such contracts. In the fiscal year, Wyoming statutes do not prescribe, however, who should handle purchasing functions for small purchases, nor do the statutes, other than for the procedures to be followed in the awarding of certain contracts, require that any particular purchasing practices be followed. On February 6, 2001, Council adopted a resolution establishing procedures for such small purposes. In the fiscal year 2018, our audit review of the city policies, the examiner suggested that we provide some clarification to the policy regarding staff approval procedures for purchases of invoices over $35,000. While it has been a practice that such invoices are approved through the approval of the Finance Committee and subsequent approval through the City Council minutes, it has not been specifically referenced in the document. So before you this evening, you do have a copy of our purchasing procedures as they stand, along with the proposed changes that we want to make to those. And it does reference that any invoices over $35,000 would continue to be approved through the minutes of the Finance Committee and ultimately the City Council. Additionally, the staff is proposing a change to remove the references in the documents related to purchase orders. That is an old practice with old software, and we no longer require purchase orders for purchases. We pay off of invoices that have been approved by people with the appropriate signing limits. And we are also recommending the addition to the verbiage to seek quotes through local vendors whenever reasonable and feasible to do so. And with that, I would ask that the council accept the proposed revisions, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to accept the proposal of the revision to the City of Riverton's purchasing policy.
So moved.
Moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Mike?
I guess I have a question on the purchases between $3,000 and $34,999. You know, it says local vendors should be used whenever possible, reasonable, feasible. Does that hold, I mean, that's not very specific. And I guess, so what exactly do we mean possible, reasonable, and feasible?
Your Honor.
I don't know if there's a better way to say it, but.
Your Honor, specifically, we look for vendors that are considered local vendors, and that would be any vendors located within Fremont County. Oftentimes, there are products or services that we request, especially given some of our treatment plants. They have very specialized equipment, and there are individual or companies that are not located within the county. We do our best to try to research every possible vendor that we can to provide services within the county. If they are not able to, we do require our staff to provide explanation with regard to what vendors or contractors they sought out and the reasons why they could not be used. So that's what we consider to be a reasonable and feasible approach to seeking out local vendors.
And then to follow that up, I guess, is there a local preference? I know like with the state of Wyoming, there's a 5% within Wyoming preference. Is that same thing apply to within Fremont County, or are we not allowed to do that legally, I guess?
Your Honor, I don't believe that it's a legal issue that we would need to seek out a local vendor. Of course, we always try to, and we are more inclined to seek the lower priced vendor, but we are also very careful to make sure that the vendor does not bid the lowest price. We also want to make sure that we're getting the best job or the highest qualified person to perform the job.
Tony?
If I may, with regard to your question on local preference like the state does, I believe we could research that on how that would be implemented. We tend to like to use local vendors because we like our money to stay local. That's generally at the heart of our thought process. I will say that defining this verbiage is always very difficult. I've seen these policies before, so your question is appropriate. The thing that I understand about local preference or any type of preferential point system or the like, whether it be in hiring or the like, or any similar item with regard to purchasing, is that you have to have a policy in place. You have to have it defined. So we could research that for you if you want. But as far as a point process goes, we could probably implement the Wyoming one on some level, but that's Wyoming, and we could see if that one worked at the local level for the local vendors. Most of the time, what we honestly find is that once you take shipping into account and the like, and locally, the local ones line up pretty well. So it hasn't really, to my knowledge, been much of a challenge.
I think that would be a good
Question.
idea.
Do you want to make a motion to that, or do you want to? I guess what you're trying to say, now, if I understand that correctly, there's a preference in bids, in construction, that the Wyoming bid can be higher by 5% and still be the preferred bidder.
Right.
And so I believe that that's the verbiage that we need to go back and research if that's possible. Now, I think the other thing that we do, we try to purchase locally. Do we come to an instance where we find that we're driven by price to go elsewhere, to go out of county? I would even be more, I like Fremont County a lot. I want business in Riverton, so I would prefer that the Riverton businesses get the first look. But eventually, we've got to make that choice on price, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
So Kyle, do you have anything to add?
Your Honor, I was just going to follow up with it. There are certain purchases related to my department that we have found that we have been forced to go outside of the county because of the cost effectiveness of the price, but we always try and look local first.
Okay. And so I think what Councilman Bailey's asking for is some assurance by statute that we have that preference in place. Do we need to research that and make sure that that's possible on purchasing?
Your Honor, yes. At this point, we'll bring something. We don't require a motion. We can research how that would look, or how that would look.
Because typically where we see that is in a bid performance.
Yes.
Okay. Is that sufficient?
So, and I'm trying to look here. Is this a 3 reading deal, or is this a one-time only shot?
It's one time shot.
It's a one-time.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean we can't revisit it, does it not? Can we revisit it?
Yes, we can absolutely revisit this, Your Honor. So if we passed it now because it's a policy, then if we brought something more developed, we could put that back in front of you for a single reading.
I'd be fine with that.
Any further discussion? So let me state that clearly so that we understand what we're doing. If you would please research that and see how that affects purchasing to the point that we would like preference to Riverton and Fremont County vendors to a 5% level, if that's possible, when we're purchasing. Is that clear enough?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go ahead and take a vote on this. Is that
Yes,
right?
Your Honor.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Now we're down to the fun part of the party. It's nice to have everybody with us. We appreciate you coming. We do have a vacancy in Ward 1 that we need to fill. City Administrator Tony, do you want to lay down the rules, or you want me to do it really bad and you can fix it?
I'll quickly go through. There's some, as council does have options. Generally speaking, we're going off of the same way we kind of did it, the same when Councilwoman Schatz was selected. Interview questions have been provided to council. They were not included in the packet, and the intent of that is to make sure that everybody has an even playing field and there are new questions to everybody, but council has now seen them. Each council member will ask the candidates one question as provided. If the council desires to ask any different or additional questions, just please be sure to try to ask that to everyone. Each candidate will be interviewed individually, and we would ask that the two candidates wait on the onset, that the candidates that haven't been interviewed wait out in the atrium. That way they're not privy to the questions in advance. Each will be given to, the candidates will be interviewed in alphabetical order, and each will be given about 10 minutes to answer the interview questions. It's not a hard line time, it's a guideline. Nameplates will be placed in front of each of the candidates, if you've seen, so we can reference them if we don't know them. Once the interviews are complete, council may, if you choose, adjourn into executive session to discuss, or you may choose to just take a vote. At that point, I will collect your votes. The chief and I will go into the back room, we'll count them up, I'll come out, I'll announce, and then council can choose whether or not they would like, with the selected individual, to swear them in this evening, or to wait till the next meeting, because this is the last item of work we have this evening, so their families could be here. I guess that's a conversation between council and whoever you select. But generally speaking, that's the process that we've proposed for your use.
Thank you, Tony. Is there any questions from the audience that they need any clarification on what we're doing? So I think that Mr. Rota and Mr. Loggery will have to go to the atrium and try not to eavesdrop. We'll send somebody out there to watch you, okay? And then Patrick Lawson, would you approach the podium, and does Patrick at any time to state his position, or do we just start with questions?
I think it would probably be appropriate to ask him to introduce himself, Your Honor.
And maybe at the end, he could give comments or whatever he has.
Okay. Patrick, it's been suggested that you get a minute or two to introduce yourself, and then maybe at the end of our questions, you could wrap it up with that, okay?
Thank you, Your Honor. My name is Patrick Adam Lawson. I have a father, Patrick Lawson Sr., and I was born here in Riverton, Wyoming, and spent most of my life here. I just moved away for a couple of years to further my education, but I came back because I thought this would be a great community to raise a family. So I currently run the Northern Arapaho Tribal Industries and Wind River Internet Service for the Northern Arapaho Tribe. I live here in Riverton, and I would just like to be a part of this council to make sure, this town continues to be a great place to live for everybody.
Thank you. We appreciate having you here and taking the time to apply. We'll start with Councilman Borders as number one, and we'll work our way to around the table, and I get the last one. So, all right.
How are you this evening?
Oh, pretty good.
Nice to have you here. Describe your personal success and how it would relate to serving as a council member.
My personal success, I was homeschooled, and actually I went to elementary school here in Riverton, and I was homeschooled for a while, and I went to school at CWC, and I got my associates there, and I did a lot of video production for a lot of the local television stations and different entities around the area, and had my own little cyber cafe, and I went off to Las Vegas for a while, and I worked at Circuit City over there, and I ultimately came back here, and I've been working on the reservation for the past 19 years. I've managed very large contracts for federal, USDA at F.E. Warren, DOJ, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BIA, and I've grown a little company from 2 people to around 27. And then we also have about 20 or so contractors working on projects right now.
Okay. Just a side note, I am an owner of some of your video work.
Oh,
My daughter was a dancer, so.
great.
All right. This is really awkwardly worded, so I'm going to change it a little bit. And what do you feel as a council member would be important to do to make municipal government function successfully?
I think it's important to listen to the community and what they have to say and take that into consideration along with all the other stakeholders. And then any of my personal experiences kind of provide my own input and take into consideration the rest of the council and what their experience is and how it relates, and just any kind of value that I could add to the decision-making process.
Thank you.
Good evening, Patrick. What do you perceive as some of the key issues facing Riverton, and briefly describe how you would approach these issues through your role as a council person?
I see, unfortunately, I see a lot of the empty businesses and a lot of homes for sale in the area. That kind of concerns me, and that kind of, that's why I'm here today. Is I'd like to see what it would take to kind of build up existing companies and local industry and maybe attract new industry to kind of fill in some of these areas. And that's basically why I think I'd be good to kind of help out here.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Patrick. What unique characteristics would you bring to council if you are appointed?
I've got a pretty extensive background in technology, information technology, both in computers, networking, telecommunications, a lot of things from a technical aspect, also working with federal agencies and contracts with them as well. I think I could provide a lot of guidance, anything that comes to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you for applying, Patrick. We appreciate it. What does it mean for you to be a public servant? And if you would stand closer to the microphone, I can barely hear you. I can read your lips, but that's about it.
Sorry about that. What does it mean to be a public servant? To listen, actively listen to what people have to say, hear their concerns, be available to talk with anybody, openly about whatever issues that are going on, and to take that and be a voice and let it be heard, so that it can. We look out for my ward and see what their issues may be and represent them on the council.
Thank you.
Patrick, thanks for coming tonight. And I told you earlier that I graduated with your dad, and I want to tell you that your dad's always been a positive influence in my life, and I've appreciated it every time I bump into him. And so you represent him well. The question that I've got, what role do you think city government should fill?
I think city government should like what I heard discussed earlier today, really look out for, you know, the local people, the people and enterprises, businesses, and put them first and foremost at all decision-making processes. I really like the idea of giving a percentage on when there's things are out for bid, a little bit of preferential treatment for local businesses that are going to be helping sustain the local economy. And, you know, I do think, you know, it is, you know, a democracy, and that people should have the right to come up and express what they have to say, and that the city should listen and make adjustments accordingly, and that this body here represents that, and I think it's very effective.
Thanks, Patrick. Would you like to add anything before you turn over to the next individual?
I would just like to thank you all for your time, and even if I'm not selected, if there's any way I can help, I would be more than open to helping on anything.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think he would have to leave, would he? Keep the last one busy out there.
Here I am. So,
Fred, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to have you here. Would you take a moment and introduce yourself, and then we all have a prepared question, and so we'll start with Carla and work around the council, and then I get the last question, and then when we're done, we'll give the time back to you to summarize if you'd like.
Okay. Well, you just want to know a little bit about me. Okay. Well, as I was sitting back here, I was looking at the pictures, and I don't want to date myself, but there's 13 mayors that I've had that I can remember. And one of them was one of the witnesses at my wedding, and one of them was a former teacher of mine. So we go back a ways, know quite a few people around here. I'm a third generation from Riverton. My grandparents homesteaded out Paradise Valley. I graduated from Riverton High School in the class of 1966, so dating myself again. I was a graduate of the first class of CWC, so I've seen a lot of changes here in Riverton, a lot of changes, and I think most of them have all been really good. I retired school teacher. I retired in 2011. I started my career teaching in Salt Lake City for a couple years. I then went to Arapahoe, taught at Arapahoe for 15 years. I worked down at Child Development Services for 7 years or so, and then went into the Riverton School District and finished up with what I thought was probably the best job in the district. And I was working with kindergarten through third grade students, special ed. And it was really very rewarding. I'm married, have 2 kids. Neither one live here. One lives in out by Portland, Oregon, and the other one lives in Salt Lake City. That's me.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Fred.
Okay.
Carla?
Well, you've kind of covered this already, but hello.
Hello.
Describe your personal success and how that would contribute to your being selected as a council member.
Well, I think some of my personal successes is being able to graduate from college. I mean, that's a success in my mind. I was the first one, in fact, the only one in my family that have done that. At this present time, my son is working on doing that, and I'm hoping that he will be able to succeed at that here in about the next year. I do classify 40 years in the classroom as a personal success, and I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
You know,
Good evening. What do you feel as a council member you can do to make sure that municipal government functions successfully?
well, that's a good question, because I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'll be real honest with you. I mean, I know that I would, if I were to be, selected, I mean, I like to talk with people. I like to get people's ideas, and then I like to weigh them out. And that's kind of where I look at it on that. So,
Thank you.
Good evening, Fred. What do you perceive as some of the key issues facing Riverton, and describe how you would approach these issues through your role on council?
well, I think I'm real concerned with the vacant buildings around Riverton. It's happened before. I remember when I was young, they thought Riverton was going to dry up and blow away, and then a short time later, it turned around and started to build again. I'd like to see businesses brought in. I'd like to see things that will clean industry come in. I'd like to see some programs, I know it's not the group here, but I'd like to see some programs brought up at CWC again. A few years ago, they had the PTA, physical therapy assistance program there. I thought that was good. I liked the nursing program. I was really kind of disappointed that when the legal program from Jackson kind of fell through, that they didn't jump on that and bring that down. I just think there's a lot of things that we could do here that would bring Riverton back again, as far as the businesses. One of the things that I would like to see done is I'd like to see some of the things cleaned up in Riverton. The streets, the city, some of those things. It bothers me a lot to see campers and trailers and stuff like that sitting on the street, yards that are not taken care of. Now, I know there's a lot of houses that are vacant, but I think that somebody needs to take care of those kinds of problems.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Lawry.
Hi.
My question would be, what unique characteristics do you think that you would bring to council if you were to be appointed?
Okay, now would you repeat that for me?
Sure. What kind of unique characteristics would you bring to council if you were to be appointed?
Well, I guess one of it would be the history that I have here in Riverton, to see what has happened and how things have changed, some for the good, some for the bad, I think. But my age, I hate to say it, but I think my age would help with seeing some of the things that's been going on and how it's changed. So,
Thank you.
yes. Can I ask you one question?
Absolutely.
Do I know you? Is your mother?
Cynthia.
Okay. I thought so. Okay.
Do I
Sorry
look
to
like her?
embarrass you.
No, I get it all the time.
I thought,
It's
okay.
like my sister now. I think she's getting younger as I'm getting older.
Okay, all right. Well, I put the name and I thought, oh, I don't know if that's for sure. That's right. Okay, sorry.
You're fine.
All right.
Good evening, Fred.
I got
Tell me more about what it means to be public servant.
it. Well,
You said something about the most enjoyable part of your career. Tell me about that.
well, I think if you are a public school teacher, you are a public servant. Just like if you're a policeman, you know darn well that you don't go into those for money. It's kind of sad to say, but my son is working at a job that he started like 3 years ago and making more money than I did when I retired from the Riverton School District in 2011. So you do things for the love of the place and for the love of people and try to make things better for everybody.
Thank you.
Fred, thanks for coming tonight, and thanks for putting your name in. I appreciate that.
Okay?
My question is, what role do you think city government should fill?
I think they need to be taking care of the people of the city. I think they need to be aware of what's going on and do the things that needs to be taken care of, to understand, where you're going and how you're getting there.
Thank you. If you'd like to summarize, we'll give you a few minutes.
I really don't have anything else I want to say, I guess. I mean, like I say, I know some of you better than others, but I guess I don't know you.
You probably had my kids in school.
Okay.
You remember Chris Steiner?
Okay, yep, okay. You looked kind of familiar.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, yes, all right, yes. And that's the thing, one of the things, teachers kind of stay the same, kids change. And I see kids a lot. I see young adults and older adults a lot that remember me. And it takes me a little bit to kind of figure them out, but yeah. So,
How many kids do you suppose you touched through your career? Any kind of an estimate?
I really don't know, Like I say, 15 years out to Arapahoe was a lot, because at that time, we did a lot of experimental, educational type programs, and so I worked anywhere from 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Child development, I worked with kids that were very, very young. And then up at Jackson, Lincoln and Jackson, you get to know all the kids, not just your kids or the kids that were in my particular class, but all the kids in the school and stuff like that. So you really do, some way or another, touch a lot of lives when you're an educator. I think it's a very demanding but worthwhile career to go into. So,
Thanks, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Fred.
thank you.
Cory, it's nice to have you here tonight.
Mr. Mayor.
We've allowed all the other guys to give us a statement about themselves for just a few minutes, and then all of us have a question for you.
Okay.
And we'll start with Carla and work our way around, and then I get the last question, and then we'll give you a moment to sum up if you want.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Do you-
Want to tell us?
You want me to go ahead first then? Okay. So my name's Cory Rota. I live here locally, obviously, with my wife, and I have 3 daughters. Whitney back there is my wife. We've been together for 10 years. This year we've been married. We've got 3 little girls. We own a couple pieces of property and small businesses here in town as well. Many of you I've met through mine, which is all around entertainment, and we do a lot of donation and charity work with local organizations and clubs. I went to school here in Riverton, attended CWC for a little while myself. I like to think I'm fairly active in the community. I sit on the Parks Committee board with a couple of the council members. I was working with the Fremont Recreation Board, which is under Mission Possible on the Recreation Center. Lately, I've been, and this is fairly new, I just talked to some of the guys at our meeting last night. We're working with Rocky Mountain Power to maybe start putting some art and stuff on the transformer boxes and stuff here in town. Anyway, so without rabbit trailing, I've worked at Kusel's for about 10 years, so had some experience in sales. I was the manager of that store, did inventory, everything of that nature. Now I'm a full-time mail carrier, and I'm also what's called a 204B. So I am the relief for the supervisor and postmaster. So if they need a day off, I step up and take care of that for them. 32, 5'10", brown hair, hazel eyes.
That's probably good enough.
All right.
Appreciate it. Carla?
So I think my question's probably a good segue into what you were just talking about, on describing your personal success and how that would relate to serving as a council member.
Okay. Yeah. So my personal success, first and foremost, got to be my wife and kids. That's the reason I do 100% of everything I do. That and without going into too much history, is changing my story from where I came from as to where I'm at now, and having the opportunity to stand here in front of you folks. I like to think I'm good at critical thinking, but I'm a worker and I'm a doer. That's how I've managed to get myself to where I'm at today. If I see an obstacle, I'll just attack it. If we can't do it one way, I can generally find another way. So I like to think that my success is because of my ambition, and I think that is something that would help me as a councilman, as I can look for other options. I'm very motivated and definitely a go-getter and ambitious with my work.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
What do you think as a council member you can do to make municipal government function successfully?
Well, I think the best way to be successful is you'll have to, it's going to be a balance, but you have to, of course, listen to your contingents and the citizens, and you have to make sure that they're heard and you understand their aspect when working to apply what is best for the community, and when making any type of new, laws or anything. I definitely think it's thinking in the best interest of not only the citizens, but the community in itself as well.
Thank you, Cory.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Cory.
Mike?
What do you perceive as some of the key issues in Riverton, and describe how you would approach these issues through your role as a council person?
Okay, so the first one, of course, we're going to have to say, to lump it in a whole would be crime, but obviously it would be, for lack of better terms, some of the alcoholism that is around town. I know the Solutions Committee is working hard at that. I think as a councilman, I could bring some good ideas as for some other tactics we could approach on these issues. I think one of the biggest issues that Riverton has right now is desirability. When you look at someone young who has a young family, and we say, hey, come to Riverton, this is a beautiful town, why is the big question right now? What do we have that is desirable for them? I think as a council member, I can help increase that by not just social events. The reason I am the reason I'm a fan of the social events is because socializing creates ideas, and there's no such thing as a bad idea in my mind. So when we have those events, we're able to get people to discuss. But I think when we create these events and people are enjoying themselves, it creates a community. Riverton is a community, but it's more of a community when everybody is together and getting along, again, for lack of better words. And I think that sometimes these small social events can help bridge that gap. When we were doing the rendezvous games, we're working on doing a test run for the tug of war. And there was a couple people up there who most would say, I don't want to stay at the park. There's a couple of ingrates here, whatever you want to say. I don't want to participate in this. We got them up and they played tug of war with us and they loved it and had a great time. And we were bridging that gap, which I think is another big issue. So the desirability, I think, is an issue. But then I think the other big issue is communication between Riverton and the tribe. I do think that we need to have better ties with the tribe. They are part of Fremont County, and as much as we want to fight against it or embrace it, they're part of Riverton. They're a huge factor for us. So I think we should be working as close as we can with the tribes. But those would be the big three factors, I would say. The crime, the community's desirability, and then working with the tribe. My tactic on those, again, would be first for the community desirability. We created desirability. I would bring ideas that we could help incorporate, try to get new businesses in here such as that as well. The communication with us in the tribe, maybe I could personally attend some of their council meetings as well. And I don't think I could represent Riverton in a whole per se, but I could go in and definitely let them know that we care enough to try to be there as well and try to make this work with all of us. Sorry I rant when I'm nervous, so I apologize.
Good evening, Cory.
Good evening.
What unique characteristics would you bring to council if you were to be appointed?
So the unique characteristics, I think outside of the box, I've got a big personality. I would say I'm a go-getter, but there's quite a few on the council that are as well go-getters as I speak. So I would say those would be the big three, critical thinking and probably imagination. I've got some pretty unique ideas. Sometimes I think that can be a good idea.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Cory, tell me about your public service.
My public service. So I've been involved with the Parks Committee. Quick rundown, what we've done is we've gone to all the local parks and established what can be repaired, what needs to be replaced, and what can we just get rid of. We will be having a public meeting on Monday for the public to give us their input, and 2 weeks after that, we'll approach the city with our ideas. I sat with some of the members from the recreation board that we had started. We ended up turning that into a pretty key factor for the Boys and Girls Club, which is going to be incorporated in our schools real soon. I did participate in that. Right now, as I said, I'm working with Rocky Mountain to try and liven up Riverton. I like to say we're going to hopefully get some art wraps and be able to put those on transformers around town. I've been a member of Big Brothers Big Sisters for several years. Charity and donation time, I could tell you I've done immense amounts of that. Anytime there's a charity, I donate my time through my business, All Around Entertainment, so they can try to raise more funds rather than pay. That's all I can think of at the moment, sir.
Thank you.
No problem.
Cory, thanks for putting in your application. We appreciate it. My question is, what role do you think city government should fill?
So the city government, in my eyes, is to create the best environment as far as safe, economically, and socially. I would say I think that is the goal of the city council when it's implementing laws, when it's handing out liquor license permits and stuff of that. I think it should always be for the best of the community, socially and economically,
Thank you.
and safely, of course.
We'd give you a minute or two if you want to wrap up, or whichever.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I just want to say thank you guys so much for your time. Some of you know I did run in the last election, losing to Mr. Larson. So I appreciate having another opportunity to come here and stand before you all tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's let those guys back out of solitary.
You want me to go out or
No, no. I hope you guys pulled the weeds while you're out there, didn't you? We appreciate your efforts and your time spent. Item 13 on the agenda, if you're following along, we don't have need tonight of an executive session for personal activities. That is not going to take place tonight. We don't need to adjourn into executive or any further discussion. We can vote. It's whatever the council chooses to do. We can move right straight ahead with the vote. We don't need a motion. We just need to know what you want to do.
I'm good with just voting, Your Honor.
Okay? So, Kyle?
Your Honor, normally, we have two judges that take the votes from us, and they count them.
Right.
And they come back and tell us.
Yeah, and what we'll do is, we have ballots in front of us. If we choose to go to vote without exec, and I think that's my preference too. We'll fill these out, and Tony will take them, and are you going to use anybody with you, or are you going to just count them?
You are, I'd take the chief of police with me, so there's two people looking.
So we can make sure that the chief's all right. You two been sick a little bit, so don't get too close.
Good.
So I think the consensus is to go ahead and vote. Okay, here we go. Thank you.
Unless it's a three-way tie.
Right.
Come on, Mike.
No straws.
Could be.
Or we
Six
could,
of
or we
us.
could pull straws.
Theoretically.
Flip a coin.
Arm wrestle.
Arm wrestle would be a good one.
I would say if it's a tie, then we'd probably better go to the executive session, probably.
We can go backwards that way.
Which in my memory banks, I remember Jim Simmons being there.
Yeah, that's about as far back as
I was here, but I can't remember not, or, the one before him.
Your Honor, the individual selected is Cory Rota.
Thank you. We'd like to thank all of those that participated, and we appreciate your efforts. And we'll put your names in our memory bank because we always are needing assistance, and we really do. We use all of our people that volunteer, and we'll get your names on those lists and get me back to you. Thanks, guys. We skip ahead because we didn't go into that, clear to item 14. Now, to give you some opportunity, we don't have to swear you in tonight. We could do it next week if you have some family that wants to come. If you don't, we can take a swipe at swearing you in. That is your choice.
Mr. Mayor, we can go ahead and just do it now.
Okay. There's, is that correct? Can we do that? Okay. I got a sheet right here, if I can just pick it up.
I was gonna pull it over.
Corey, you want to meet me at the podium, I suppose, so we can pick up a mic?
Put my hand up there.
Where the camera can see you.
This is done this before, so.
Me too.
You solemnly swear or affirm that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Wyoming, that you have not knowingly violated the law related to your election or your appointment, or caused it to be done by others, and that you will,
Discharge.
discharge the duties of the office with fidelity.
You.
You do? Is that sufficient? You will. Bring that up and sign. Start shaking hands with you.
Congratulations.
Got my best side. Mr. Mayor, let me sign that for you.
Go ahead.
Got a spot.
Cory, we welcome you to the council, and I'll get you some council assignments so you know where you're supposed to be
Sure.
and when those happen. And we'll put you right to work because we know you like to work. We're now down to the reports and comments. And we'll go to item 15, the council committee reports and council member roundtable. Let's start with Mike. And we'll work our way to Tim and Carlin and back to pick up Cory. And then
Right.
back to Kyle and Rebecca.
So, thank you. I apologize, I had to be absent at the last meeting, but it was my anniversary and I had to take my wife. 19 years, so, excuse me. Time flies when you're having fun. So we got to visit California, and we went on a little wine tasting tour, and it was cold there not compared to here, but it was not a lot warmer. So, and then I had a petroleum marketer meeting in Las Vegas, and it snowed the day before we got there. So much for my wintertime retreat to the heat. But and then I did get to attend the NRA banquet that we had here last week, and it was very well attended. Again, the community is always very generous in supporting the different activities that go on in our town, whether it's charitable activities or these other, organizations that need help funding. And so, again, got to see a lot of people. Whenever I travel and go visit places like Las Vegas and California, it makes me really, really appreciate living in Riverton, Wyoming. We have such a beautiful town. It's a little chilly this time of year, but we do not have near the issues that we do in a lot of these big towns. And we've talked about a few of our issues that we have around Riverton. My daughter took me on a little drive-through tour after she picked us up at the airport, and as we drove through the city of LA, under almost every interstate, bridge, there's people living in tents under the bridge. There was people living on the sidewalks in that town. So, we may have our set of problems here in Riverton, but we don't have near the problems we do in some of the other big cities. And so sometimes, we get focused on our issues and don't look as broadly as we should. And I think we need to really be thankful for the amazing community that we do get to live in and the amazing amount of wonderful people that we have. that, really come out and support each other very well. So, and again, I'd like to thank all of the people that came out tonight to, apply for this position. Probably one of the most frustrating things that we find in public service is just participation. So it's always enlightening when we see people come out and participate and get involved, because that's how we all do make a difference in the place that we live. So, thank you.
Tim?
Okay, I attended the Recreation Board meeting last night. We had a last-minute kind of addition to the request for grants. We have finalized the form and the process for the beautification grants. So we had talked about this before, that we actually have specific grants available for organizations in the community that are really wanting to do things that are going to beautify the city. So these are not just recreation, but specific as to beautification. I will say, so we do have those forms available, and there's money available. We give out, the Recreation Board gives out so much money a year, and it goes to wonderful causes. And I just would encourage, if you have ideas, things that you want to do that can beautify the community, get a form, get it filled out, and let us know about it. I would specifically note, the biggest thing we talked about is upkeep and maintenance of whatever it is. We do not, if you have something you want to do to beautify the city, kind of like, the MOU with the dog park, for example, we'd want to have a specific plan on how you're going to make sure that it's not just going to get overrun by weeds or whatever in the future. So definitely would encourage folks to get their applications in for that. Solutions Committee, we didn't meet, but I guess we'll be meeting, are we next week? I think so. So we'll hopefully get some things going then. We do have a couple of ordinances and things that we have that we're wanting to discuss, but that's all I have.
Thank you. Carla?
All I really have to report on is the Parks Committee. We met last night. We're working on our community presentation on Monday night. It's the 11th at 6 o'clock here in City Hall, Council Chambers. And there's some really exciting things happening, so I hope that you guys can come and everybody in the community can come out. That's
Thank you.
about all I have.
Thank you. Cory?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, so the only thing I would have would be the Rocky Mountain Power. Right now, I'm talking with a gentleman named Ron Wild. He's out of Casper, and Rock Springs has already began to put the wraps on some of their transformers. There's some stipulations and things of that nature, so I'm doing a little more investigation, but I'll have some more information on that soon enough.
Thank you. You might explain a little bit, those wraps. My mother went out and painted her transformer box without permission. And so you can do that if you choose. But Cory has found an opportunity where we can work with the power company to enhance those boxes, correct?
And all of the wraps will be done by the local art guild. We're going to have, hopefully some of their members will submit the designs. How it'll work is the city council actually has to approve all the images, and then we submit it to Rocky Mountain Power that we approved them, and then we can go ahead and place them. It seems pretty simple. There's just some factors that have to be brought to the city before we can move forward on it, and some more information I need to get.
My mother was a local artist, but she didn't have permission. We do appreciate that. Kyle?
Fremont County Solid Waste Disposal District is healthier than it ever has been, and they're in the neighborhood. See, we all think of perpetual maintenance as a graveyard. We always want to be buried, and we want the lawn to be green and be watered and well-maintained, and that's called perpetual. Well, unfortunately, we don't rank as well as our waste disposal properties, because they are, not only do they have to be pretty, but they have to be monitored. The water coming from that area has to be sampled, et cetera. But citizens of Fremont County are well taken care of, because there's roughly about $16 million that's in reserves for the future, putting it to death, or to bed, excuse me, the waste places, Lander, Shoshone, Du Bois, and various other landfills, and they're doing quite well.
Thank you, Kyle. We appreciate your effort. Kyle was also at the rec board with Tim on Monday.
Rec board is an interesting thing. As we've been previously, we designed a form that when you get money for doing beautification, that it's not an additional requirement for the city of Riverton. When you take on and make a beautification, that's yours. Although it could be ours, we don't want it. We want people to take care of it themselves. And that's the new form that's coming out, so that, what is your maintenance program? What was the name of that museum down by the old show house?
Wind River Heritage Center.
Wind River Heritage Center has a beautiful backyard that people can go and have a picnic and lunch, and we're going to fund them with a sprinkler system and annual maintenance on it, but we don't want to take care of it. We want them to take care of it. So the money is there, but we're not interested in getting 15 parks.
Me either.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
The Pause Board, they had their Marty Pause event this last weekend. We actually have one of the all-stars in the audience, Rusty Wirtz, that put that on. It was very successful. I'm not too sure how much do you know how much they ended up raising from that event?
I know in raffles we made about 5,000, so event is approximately around 8 for the event. So.
Right, and I mean, they did a great job. So the decorations were amazing, all thanks to Rusty over there. That's all I have for pause. For parks, just again, I want to say, invite the public to the Monday night meeting at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. We will have refreshments to offer, and we would just really like your input to see what you guys would want to see in your parks, see what you can improve, and then see what we can change and take away or add to the parks. It should be a pretty laid-back time, so you won't be sitting in the audience listening to everybody talk. You'll be able to give your input, so it should be a really good time. Hopefully, it'll be over by about 7:30 is what we're thinking. So just a little piece of your time on Monday night here in council chambers at 6 p.m. The JCs are actually offering the refreshments, so if nothing else, come get a drink and a cookie or something. I meet with the chamber board this Thursday. We do meet monthly, so I haven't met since the time before. They mentioned the Heritage Center. The Chamber Social will be at the Heritage Center this Thursday evening, starting at 5 p.m. If you don't know where the Wind River Heritage Center is, it's as you're leaving town towards the casino. It's going to be on the left-hand side. I want to say thank you to the candidates tonight. Like you said, Patrick, don't stop here. And we're always looking for volunteers, even in the city committees or anything else. And I did see the awesome videos that you've been posting of our events, or the Parks Committee events that we've been putting on. And I want to say I appreciate that a lot. And thank you for coming out tonight. And I want to congratulate Cory again. I know that he works extremely hard for this community. At the end of the day, I can tell you that Cory, everything he does is to better this community. He's very selfless. So I want to say congratulations again.
Thank you.
On being appointed. Oh, and one more thing. I want to give a shout out to Cameron Faring. If you guys have been to this Day in the Park, I know years ago when I was a kid, Day in the Park was huge. Everybody in Fremont County was at the Day in the Park. Well, Cameron Faring recently moved back to Riverton. He was born and raised here. And I can say, if you see him out in public, tell him thank you, because he is working his booty off, making things happen in this community behind the scenes. And I know he's probably going to say, why would you talk about me at the meeting? Because he does it just behind the scenes. But I want to say thank you to Cameron for getting that going. The Day in the Park, Arts in Action, he's bringing a lot of great things to the community. So if you see him, tell him thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'd like to thank those that went to Wham. Tony went to the Wham meetings, and so did Tim. We spent approximately the better part of 3 days in Cheyenne, and we did a lot of good work for the city of Riverton. Interesting how many bills and how much legislation goes past us, and we take that all for granted. The legislature is now out of session, and I'd like to thank them for their efforts on our behalf. They work hard, and we have great representatives. I had the unique opportunity to go to Lander City Council last Tuesday, and we had an ask in there, which means we were begging for money for the airport, and hopefully they'll take a look at that and cite our way and help us fund the airport like they have in the past. We appreciate that. I was glad to do that. We also have an opportunity. We met last Wednesday in Lander, and Councilman Hancock was there, and Tony was there, and our police chief was going to be there, but flew down with the flu bug, and so we took another captain, and we were well represented, and the subject was on shoplifting. And so we're going to have that same meeting tomorrow night right here in these chambers, and anybody that is involved with merchandise, anybody that is privy to shoplifting and has any concerns about it, we'd like to invite them to come to that meeting. Starts at 6 o'clock in these chambers. And what we're really looking for is the input from merchants to what they need, and then we'll see if we can try to assist and help to stop that. I also attended an FTAG meeting, which is a Fremont County Government's meeting. I don't know if everybody is aware of those, but all the mayors get together once a month, and we try to see if we can't help each other and see what each one of us need. And then we also have positions that are on that FTAG board that require input for the transportation service and those things that happen around Fremont County. We were in that meeting from 1:30 till 5. Tony didn't believe that I stayed in that meeting that long, but we got a new mayor from Pavilion that was appointed. And so there's lots of things that need to be done in the FTAG. I was fortunate enough to be in the building when the Parks Committee was meeting Monday night and the rec meeting, and I slipped into both of those, and I appreciate the efforts that the council puts forward to attend those meetings. I had one other thing that I wanted to bring up, if I can find that on the table here. At Wham, we all drew lots every few hours to see which presentation we had to go to, and I lucked out all the way along and stuck everybody with other bad meetings, and I got all the good meetings. But at the end of the conference, I got stuck with the census meeting. And I went in the census thinking that, this has got to be the most boring meeting that we can have. And yet, I was really surprised. It didn't last very long. It was really, really short. But the census is done every 10 years, and some of us repel against the census. There's only one question on the census that they really insist that be answered, and that is how many people live in the residence that you're in. And so they pointed out that can be a real negative question, and lots of times people don't want to answer it. But it's a real important question because a lot of funding comes back through those answers. And there's unbelievable amount of data that we get from the census. But what I was really interested in is this paper was put together by the Washington University, the George Washington University in DC, and it counts the dollars that were sent back to states. In the fiscal year 2015, the state of Wyoming received back from that census $881,376.94. I never had an idea that much money was returned through the census to the state of Wyoming. And Fred's older than me, but just by a little bit. And I was really surprised to see how much money came back. It's all broke down into 16 criterias, and they're rather large. Of course, the Medicare assistance takes the big dollars. But I was gladly surprised at how important the census meeting was that I went to. And I would encourage all of our listeners and everybody to get a hold of the census, fill it out and return it timely. And it has a purpose, and it greatly enhances the state of Wyoming. I appreciate that. Tony, we jumped past you because I did it myself. Would you like a moment?
Well, it's a big jump, but just a couple items to Councilwoman Schatz's point about Day in the Park. We are in contact with Mr. Faring about some of his requests. We're working to get some of those answered. He has some great plans. He wants to grow the event, and that's exactly what we were looking for. So we look forward to not only that program, but some of the other programs that he has in mind. A very creative individual that we're looking forward to working with a lot. Just quickly, last time we met, Men Who Cook was almost here, and now it's gone, and it was good. It was real good. So we had good food. It was a good turnout. I'm not sure how much was raised, but just another example of how this community manages to come together for good projects. This one for youth literacy through the Dolly Parton Foundation to provide shipping for those free books for little kids, and I think it was just a really good project. Very well done, very well attended, I think. We are planning right now to try to have the WHAM regional meeting here. The mayor and I have spoken with it. I'm in contact with, both of us are in contact with the WHAM offices. Mayor, you had a date that they provided you?
April 19th.
April 19th. So that would be April 19th in these chambers. It's a nice opportunity for, if anybody's interested, to come see the business that WHAM is doing within our region. And we'll provide that information, much more detailed information on that coming up. Your Honor, other than that, I only had one other item. I would, if you would allow me, I'd yield a couple minutes to Kyle on our air service report. We just had some good news, and let's end on a good note, so if you don't mind.
Your Honor, we did have some good news coming today in our weekly report from Forecast Inc. And maybe this is the competitive side of me coming out. We do share air service with Sheridan, and for several years, Sheridan has outpaced Riverton in sales and in load factor. But since February 1st, Riverton has outpaced Sheridan in sales. And so what does that mean? It means I think we're pulling our weight more in our agreement with Sheridan, and it's a very positive one because we've split costs 50-50 with them. But now we're catching up. In fact, we're exceeding them. And we see that as a positive thing moving forward. The other interesting thing to note is that in comparison with the two communities, Riverton's sales increased closer to the travel date in comparison with Sheridan. What does that really mean? What that means is we're probably seeing more business travel out of Riverton than out of Sheridan, and they're seeing a little bit more leisure travel. One's not better than the other, but I think it's a good sign that the business community is utilizing our local airport, showing that it is, I think, of value for economic development. And it is good news. It's good to see that we are regaining our market and people are flying local again. And doggone it, we're doing pretty good and beating Sheridan, so. At least since February 1st.
And that is probably one of the hardest working committees that we have that works for the city. They meet weekly, and their emails flash back and forth, and information is extremely technical, and that it's really fun to participate with them and to go places like the Lander City Hall, and we went to the county offices. We made the same bag there. Kyle's doing a wonderful job there supporting that, and I appreciate his efforts. And Mike, do you have something?
Yeah. To follow up on what Tony said, the Men That Cook, I seen Jim Davis today, which was involved in that through the Chamber of Commerce, and they raised approximately $16,000. Best year they've ever had, so. Also, just so people know, those funds are used to pay the postage for the books that the Dolly Parton Foundation gives to any child, I think, birth to 5, if I remember correctly. And if you have a child that qualifies for that, they have the applications at the Chamber of Commerce, so fill those out and your child will get free books. Every month, I think.
You can also get online.
And
Do it pretty easy online.
Okay. So wonderful fundraiser for the community, so.
I hate to connect those dots, but lots of those guys that were cooking haven't been well.
I've been feeling fine.
And I would say Tony and Tim's soup was amazing too. so.
It's good.
Thank you. We'll bring some meeting.
Yeah, that's a hint.
Okay. I understand that.
Maybe for Wham.
Maybe for Wham.
We don't have any further business. We do not need an exec. Is that correct?
We do not need an exec session,
Okay.
Your Honor.
So I would the chair would entertain a motion to adjourn the regular council.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Oh, let's vote. Who wants to adjourn?
Me.
Aye.
Aye. All those, any nays? No nays. We stand adjourned at 8:30.